Hi there. I'm doing this just a little earlier than I normally do because I had to make sure that I did this before midnight because if you didn't know, today's Craft Distillery Day. And also, if you didn't know, I work at a craft distillery. This one. So, wore the shirt to represent. I'm also showing a little love up here to our friends over at Deerhammer and Buena Vista because we love those guys and what they do. So, wore the hat today. Also, I'm going to do this a little differently because I'm going to taste something, but I'm gonna figure out what it is, which, to be completely honest, shouldn't be too hard, because this will be my first time recording a tasting of one of my own products. So, at Black Bear, we make a good line of products. Our main line includes a moonshine, a rye vodka, a white and gold rum. There are stories behind those that are a little more in depth than just saying we make them. Then we have a Caribbean cask wheat whiskey. We also have our Irish style bourbon. We also have things that we don't necessarily sell all the time or make available all the time. One of those things being spiced rum. We make it. We sell it about once a year. But also, we have lots of experiments because that's what we do. We try new things. We have our real system and we have our test system, and we do small batches and try to figure out if what we have in mind will make a good product. So, with that in mind, I have most of our regular product line at my house, at least samples of it, and then samples of some of the other experiments that we've run. So, what I've done tonight is I left the room and asked my wife from all those little sample bottles I have to pour me something and not tell me what it was. She wrote it down on a piece of paper over here that's folded up, and it's just sitting there. If you don't trust me, just trust me. The bottle that this came out of is this little guy right here. It's a sample bottle. So when we make a batch and either we want to test cocktails or something at home, or we have some other use at home for it. Sometimes it's cooking, because as the title of my channel says, I'm also a chef, just like everybody else that works for us. But in this case, I think I probably brought it home because we did a barrel tasting, and I didn't want to leave it behind. I don't know, because as you can see, there's no label. I'm guessing. She poured it for me in this glass right here, and I'm going to do my regular analysis of it and see if I can pinpoint exactly what it is. Now, you might be saying, that's too easy. You made it. You should know what it is. That is true. I made it. I should know what it is. However, some of our products are finished in different barrels, and some are aged in barrels that can trick your mind. We have rum XO Reserve, rum JM XO Reserve barrels that change the flavor of a whiskey to be quite a bit more like a rum. We have sherry barrels that we finish our Irish style bourbon in. We have other little barrels that we test on. And sometimes we take products from barrels that we're not quite sure about. So I don't know what this is, but I'm going to try to figure it out. Hopefully not too hard, but I do, like I said, have a good array of kind of weird samples going on. So let's get started. We have what I would consider a pretty nice gold color. That doesn't give me much of a hint because none of our stuff is extremely aged except for one thing that's not available yet, and I have none at my house. That one will be available later, so I'll update you on that. But I think it's gold. It's a pretty good gold color from the lighting I have. I can guarantee that it's a single pot still run because that's the system we have. So right off the bat, I get some grassy notes. That could mean that this was aged in one of those rum JM barrels because they make a rum agricole, and rum agricole tends to have a little bit of a grassiness to it. But it could also be one of our products that has raw grain in it as opposed to malted, and they tend to be a little more floral. So this could be an aging experiment on our rye vodka, or it could be something we made with raw barley, which I'm leaning more that direction. Has vanilla notes, caramel apple notes, apricot. Something that reminds me of cornflakes, which could be several things. We used to make something called Reserve Shine. That was our moonshine aged for 6 months in bourbon barrels. This has that same cornflake kind of note. Definitely smoke. A little bit of molasses, but I'm getting just a hint of butterscotch. And that kind of leads me in the direction of our original Irish style whiskey, which, as far as I'm aware, I have none, and neither does anybody else except our archive. But is it possible that I did have some here and I didn't remember it? Because that is a thing that happens in my house. But it smells beautiful. Ooh. So, quickly on the palate, I get a hint of lemon and apricot. And what I would say is like walking through a garden. So, floral kind of notes. Also, just a hint of prune. The honey is maybe a little more like a honeysuckle. definitely caramel. And it has a background of cereal. Um, kind of like Raisin Nut Bran. If you haven't had Raisin Nut Bran, it's pretty similar to Raisin Bran. Just has a little sweeter hint to it and some almonds. But I'm still getting quite a bit of butterscotch, and it's very much on the finish, which could be that original Irish style whiskey. But I'm thinking it's a little deeper. It tastes to be about 45%, about 90 proof, which the Irish style bourbon and the Irish style whiskey were and are 90 proof. But this just has more depth to it than the original Irish style. So I'm definitely heading off in the direction of our Irish style bourbon. I don't think this could be our Caribbean cask. While it has the grassy notes and sort of the subtle notes that would make you think that there's sugarcane juice involved, it's just a little bit heavier. And I wouldn't say that you could use this in any cocktail, where the Caribbean cask, I would say, could fall into just about every cocktail. So it's not light enough to be the Caribbean cask. Could it still be our Reserve Shine? It's possible. I think unlikely. This does not remind me of that nearly enough. So I'm pretty firm. And I haven't opened that sheet yet, but I'm about to. I am pretty sure that this is our Irish style bourbon. What I can't pinpoint is whether it's the current batch that is bottled and ready, or the previous batch that's bottled and sold pretty much entirely. It could be either. But I'm going to say that it's the previous batch. I have no way to verify that because, once again, no label on that little bottle. So I'm guessing, but I think that this is that previous batch of Irish style bourbon. So let's see. Still folded up, and there's some artwork on it. So boom. All right. I feel pretty good about that. Yes, I know my products really, really well. I taste most of them multiple times before they ever hit the bottle. But give me just a second. I believe I have one. There we are. All right. So, this is the bottle we're talking about. Although this particular bottle is from the most recent batch, and I am in the process of getting this delivered to a friend of mine who already paid for it. So as soon as I get a chance, this is going to him. But you can see, still sealed. It's perfect. It's just sitting in our secondary cabinet until I get it packed up, and then I'll deliver it to him. But this bottle has its own story. It's much easier to tell you in the distillery, but I'll give you a quick short version of it. We spent originally, for the original Irish style whiskey, we spent about 2 years arguing with two different governments, the U.S. government and the Irish government. And finally, we were, with some conditions and some little provisos or whatever, we were eventually able to put Irish style, right there, Irish style on whiskey that was not made in Ireland. It's a complicated story. I tell it every Saturday when we're open. But it took us 2 years just to get the label approved. Then we started working on the recipe. Recipe is, for Irish style, a combination of raw and malted barley. And we also use corn. Some Irish style whiskeys use wheat. We use corn. Almost all Irish style whiskeys are aged, at least for some time, in used bourbon barrels and then finished in sherry barrels. We use brand new bourbon barrels and finish in sherry barrels. Now, what I just described to you was more the original one. But this, the Irish style bourbon, that is still raw and malted barley with corn, but it's aged for 2 years in bourbon barrels and then finished in sherry barrels. So we do everything we can to cover all the bases. So this is a bourbon recipe. It just also contains the raw and malted barley. And then we finish it in sherry barrels at the end. So we've done everything we can to meet the bourbon regulations and the regulations that they gave us for Irish style. And that's what this is. Now, I'm a little bit biased. Obviously, I made the stuff, and I'm involved heavily in the recipe writing for this. So, if I were giving this a rating, of course, my personal preference would be probably a 10 out of 10, because I made it. I think it's perfect. But if I'm being, rational and reasonable and totally unbiased, I might go with something like an 8. 8 out of 10. And then for the price, I think it's pretty good because we sell it for about $45. So an 8 at $45 in my book is a pretty decent price. If you are interested in trying this, come see me. We're open starting next Saturday, every Saturday, all summer, and we'll have food trucks and we'll have cocktails and stuff. So while this is partially, getting into the advertisement area, it is also really just me shining a light on my part of the craft distillery world, because that's what I do and that's what I love. If you didn't get a chance to go visit your craft distillery in your area today, I recommend going to do it soon. You may not love everything that craft distillery makes, but chances are you find something that you enjoy. And if you're here in Colorado, you've got a whole lot to choose from. Besides us and Deerhammer, just here in town, in Colorado Springs, you have at least 3, if not 4, that you can check out relatively easy. In the state, there's quite a few more. And most of them, I can't speak for all of them because I only know a certain number of them. There's some new ones that I haven't met yet. but there's some great ones. If you happen to be in Fort Collins, Mob Mountain is awesome. Feisty is awesome. Copper Muse is awesome. The other ones in Fort Collins, I unfortunately don't know all that well, but I know there's at least one more up there that I don't know. If you're in Estes Park, Elkins is great. Um, let's see. If you're in Denver, there's a dozen that you could go to. Talnua, Golden Moon out in Golden. Um, let's see who else. You have Mystic Mountain up that way. We have the Woods High Mountain Distillery out in Salida. We have, quite a few. Durango Craft Spirits, it's another good one. Art of the Spirits is here in Colorado. There's just too many. I don't have my list in front of me, but there are a lot. And if you want more on that, go visit the Colorado Whiskey Guys channel, because he talks about them all the time, various ones, and he tries their stuff. So check him out, and definitely go see your craft distillery. There's a ton all over the United States, and you should definitely be checking them out. So with that, cheers. Happy Craft Distillery Day. I'll see you next time.